Good morning. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. My name is Marilyn Orr, President of the club, and we are thrilled to have you join us today. This meeting broadcast is available on HCTV, as well as our Rotary of Hudson YouTube channel and Facebook. Our club meets weekly using this digital platform, Zoom. When we meet in person, it's at Laurel Lake Retirement Community for breakfast. We hope to get back to that soon. We meet most Wednesday mornings from 7:15 to 8:30 a.m. So come out to join us for a meeting. We would love to have you as a guest. To learn more about Rotary, our club, and the impact we are having on our local community and the world, please visit our website, rotaryhudson.org. So enjoy this meeting today and help us share the message that Rotary opens doors of opportunity.
To go.
All right, you ready for me to begin?
We're ready.
Okay, so it's not often that a clergyman gets such a a heavy-handed authoritarian position as sergeant at arms. And I thought about how, our authorities that keep law and order in the community, they get to keep a weapon like a handgun. And I don't have any handguns, so I couldn't have that. Or the UK, they have billy clubs, and I don't have any billy clubs either. So I looked around the house and I found something. It's a wooden spoon. It's more intimidating in person. I'm going to tell you, it would scare you. And so just to let you know, I'm ready to begin today. Okay. With all of that said, I am Father Joe Boisel, the substitute sergeant at arms today. Our invocation this morning is by Kelly Brenner.
Thanks, Joe. I went to Catholic school, Joe, so I'm quite familiar with the wooden devices about the size of a ruler. I'm real short and sweet. Live simply, love generously, care deeply, speak kindly, and leave the rest to God. Amen.
Okay, and our pledge and four-way test this morning is by Doug McDowell. Doug, you're gonna have to unmute. Are you there? Shall I take over? Join me in the pledge.
I apologize.
There you are.
I'm here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Number one, is it the truth? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you. And now our president-elect, I should say, Patrick Shearer.
Good morning, Rotarians.
Morning.
Just a couple of quick announcements before we get into our program for the day. Just a reminder, we have our changing of the guard and dinner coming up on June 30th. Please get your reservations to Marilyn Orr and your choice of entrees for that evening. Will be a fun evening where we'll actually be able to be together and celebrate Marilyn's year and the starting of another Rotary year. I'm also happy to report on July 7th, we will be back to meeting in person at Hudson Meadows. So the format will be a little bit different. Breakfast will open at 7 a.m. and our meeting will start at 7:30. Unfortunately, you will not be able to eat in the room where we are meeting. So if you want breakfast, you need to be a little bit earlier and partake in that before our meeting starting at 7:30. Parking at Hudson Meadows is relatively easy. It's right off of, it's right in front of the building. So and we're in the theater for our meeting, and we're in the right next to the theater for breakfast. So the club has decided that because this will be a continental breakfast, we wanted everybody to be able to see what the continental breakfast looks like. So the club will be buying breakfast for everybody on July 7th. I just need a head count of those of you that are planning on being in attendance on the July 7th meeting. So if you can send me an email and let me know if you are planning to be in attendance in person on July 7th, so I can get a head count to the cook ahead of time. I would appreciate that. One last thing, one of the things we're going to be starting next year is a quarterly social event, primarily to benefit Polio Plus. So our first Pints for Polio event is July 21st. It's Wednesday, July 21st. So I'll remind you that morning at our club meeting, and then that evening from 5:30 until whenever, we'll be and it'll be at the Hop Tree Brewing Company in Hudson. And $1 from every pint and $1 from every entree that is purchased that evening by a Rotarian will go to Polio Plus. And with that, we'll go to our speaker. Dave, are you introducing our speaker?
I am. Thank you, Patrick.
Yep.
Our next speaker is very familiar to our club members, and it's my pleasure to introduce Tom Speaks. Tom describes himself as a practitioner of the art of appreciation, an advocate, marketing expert, author of historical fiction and philosophy, a professional speaker, and is also the owner of Hudson-based Impact Group. He describes himself as well as a poor but enthusiastic guitar player, a husband, father, and fitness nut. Tom lives in Hudson with his wife and 2 children. And without further ado, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Tom Speaks. Tom?
Thanks, David. I appreciate it. I understand you're the Latin aficionado. Is this correct?
By insistence of my father, I did take Latin in high school. And it was the best thing that he ever forced me to do.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Let me see if I can pull this up here. Can you all see Caesar and Gaul? We've got that. All right.
We can see it.
All right. How's everybody doing this morning? All right. We're so excited to do this. This is one of those things. I'm passionate about history because I think a lot of us went through school and we had very boring history teachers and they blew it. History is nothing more than a bunch of really awesome stories about really cool things that people have been they've been bludgeoned into thinking that stuff's boring. I think it's pretty fascinating because it's all just about people, right? And I appreciate what James was saying at the beginning about the history that we were taught. I'm going to ask you this today. I had a professor in college. I used to love it. He'd begin his talks about, is the person we're talking about today, this historical figure, are they a historical hero or a despicable devil? You choose. And I thought that was so cool because he put all the evidence forward, and we've been told one thing, but you judge what it is. So today I'm going to throw a lot about Caesar out at all of you, and hang with me here because we got the Caesar salad, we got Caesar Palace in Vegas, right? Caesar is just one of those things. We just accept this thing as cool. Who was this guy? And what is about Gaul? And I'm going to express to the end of this, you guys will have I think a greater appreciation of really the roots of Western civilization. So let me get into this a little bit today. So who was Julius Caesar? Once again, if I asked 99 out of 100 Americans, they would say he's the emperor of Rome, and once again, Caesar salad. Okay, this guy was fiercely ambitious, lived at the end of the Roman Republic. And what's fascinating is individuals at the end of the Roman Republic, they, let's see here. Oops. Rome, to grow in the culture there, to the political leadership, you had different offices that you would hold. You would be a quaestor, a praetor, a consul. You worked your entire life to get higher and higher in this level. When Caesar was a young man who was fiercely ambitious, but he was a part of the aristocracy. In Roman culture, you always know if someone is a part of the aristocracy because they have three names. His name was Gaius Julius Caesar. The first name is Romans weren't very inventive with their first names. You have Gaius, you have Sextus, you have Quintus. There's a couple names you could have. Second name, Julius. Gaius Julius, that's your family name, the Julian clan. There's different clans you have. You know that you're royalty, and Caesar was his kind of his last name, but he was a part of the aristocracy. There's a famous story when he was a teenager, probably maybe around 17, 18, he was sailing from one province to the next, and he was taken prisoner by pirates. Pirates really they roamed the seas back then, and they were very much a problem. What they did is they took wealthy people and ransomed them. They got this Caesar guy, and they said, we're going to ransom you for X dollars. And Caesar laughs at him and says, look, I'm worth 10 times that. And they laugh at him. But Caesar ends up getting the 10 times the amount of essentially ransom. And as he's being ransomed, he tells the pirates, now let me be crystal clear about this. The moment I get free, I'm going to hire a shipload of soldiers, come back here and crucify every single one of you. They all laughed at him. He went away, hired a bunch of soldiers, a bunch of ships, came back and crucified every single one of them. He was a brutal, brutal guy who did what he said he was going to do. When he became consul in Rome, before the empire, they were deeply distrustful of too much central power. So they would have two consuls that could veto one another, sort of the president or the prime minister. But by the time Caesar had gotten into power, he was really just at the beginning quite a shady politician. And he had formed a triumvirate with a guy named Crassus and a guy named Pompey, and I can't get into all that. But they essentially were the dictators of Rome. And when Caesar became consul, his co-consul, Caesar was a bully. His co-consul, if you can imagine, they both had chairs in front of the Roman Senate. They literally had a bucket of human excrement dumped over the head of his co-consul, beat him up, and that co-consul spent the rest of the year hiding in his home. And Caesar, he led Rome. Very much an intimidating figure, terrified people. When your consulship was over in Rome, the way the system worked is you were able to do something called a proconsul. What you would do is you would be given a province. Now, in Rome, imagine how this works. You would be given a province, but you actually have to bid to get the province like a business proposition. So let's say you're in the Cisalpine Gaul, you and your associates come up with, in like today's dollars, $100 million. We're going to buy Cisalpine Gaul for a certain period of time. What you do then is you go into that area and you tax and you take everything you can from the local population. Anything in excess of $100 million is profit. If you can imagine, this is how the Romans rolled. So they are not really motivated for good government. They are motivated to extract every possible dime they can from the local population. This is how the Roman Republic grew. Really, when the empire was founded, they really didn't grow much. But the Republic itself expanded just from old-fashioned greed. Let's exploit the heck out of these people, take what it is, and the aristocracy took that. So Caesar, at the end of his consulship, becomes proconsul of Cisalpine Gaul. So that means he's now like the governor of this area. And importantly, when you're a proconsul, you cannot be tried for any crimes. You are sacrosanct. You cannot be tried. So this is a big deal. It's later on in history. That's why he crosses the Rubicon in about a decade from now, because he was about to be up for prosecution. But he's in Cisalpine Gaul. So he's up there you're supposed to have a 1-year term, but because he was in this power group, he got a 5-year term to do what he wanted. Now, this is classic Caesar. So his mandate is to control this area in northern Italy and in southern France. Well, what he does is he realizes that if he wants to gain more power, he needs a military reputation. Pompey, who is very much the lead man in Rome, and Crassus is the richest man in Rome. These are the other two people in the triumvirate. Caesar needs a military reputation. So comes up with this idea. He's going to invade Gaul. Okay, what the heck is Gaul? Gaul is France. And Gaul at this point was not a part of the Roman Empire. And there was many Gaelic tribes, millions of people. They were beginning to have their own coinage. They were beginning to put together a population. Would have been a very powerful unified country. They were just on the verge of doing that. But Caesar, on a provocation that he sort of fabricated, I don't know, but he, without any authority from the Senate, invades Gaul. He says it's in the interest of Rome that he's going to invade Gaul. Now, I want us to take a second here. This man has no formal military training. He also is just a representative of Rome. Think of it like Alexander the Great, another great conqueror. He was the undisputed king. What he said went. Caesar he's just an official in this much larger government. So he has to not only invade Gaul, he has to absolutely make sure that the entire apparatus in Rome is behind him. So he's almost outside the law, and he has to placate all of Rome at the same time. So he invades Gaul, and he spends 7 years tearing up and down Gaul. And the old saying, divide and conquer. Had the Gaelic people united, they would have just destroyed Caesar. Caesar went up 4 or 5 legions, 50, 60,000 men. The Gauls have millions of people. But Caesar very intelligently would ally himself with one tribe, destroy the next, ally himself with another. Just 7 years of just absolute diplomatic genius, I guess, or infamy, however you want to look at it, as far as setting these different people against one another. During that time, he actually also invaded Britain. Is the only armed and opposed invasion of Britain ever. And in 1066, the Battle of Hastings and all that, but there was an unopposed landing. When Caesar landed, they were there. The people of Britain were repulsing and all, but he was able to get in. Just crazy what they were able to do. So anyway, so all these years he's going up and down, and he thinks now that he has the whole area pretty well subdued. And you got to remember, this is a long time ago. I'm kind of kidding here, but Paris was still just a little village when Caesar was tearing around. But he gets to the point now where he's going up and down, and he has most of Gaul pretty well subdued. Now these are tough folks. I mean, these folks are tough. You've got just their armor, their physicality. They are strong, and they don't want to be subdued. You have, once again, who are the despicable devils in history? Who are the heroes? You have a lot of people. Think of the movie Braveheart. The bad guys in that movie are the English. In this circumstance, the Romans are the English. And Braveheart is these guys. And the guys, so that it comes together, the Braveheart in this situation, his name is Vercingetorix. If that's not the coolest name of all time, I don't know what. His name is Vercingetorix. He is the Gaelic leader. So all of Gaul has almost been pacified, but at the last minute, they're like, we're not going to take this. We're going to revolt. So all of Gaul rises up against Caesar. So now he is in a serious situation. All the Gaelic tribes get together in one last push, and they elect this guy named Vercingetorix to lead them. And is he a heroic figure or not? You have to decide. So what we're going towards here is now the entire, almost all of France, what is now France, is in revolt. And they are coming after the Romans. And what are the Romans going to do? The Romans have a couple key battles. And I don't know why it's showing like that. I'm going to talk here for a moment about what we're going to get into is the Battle of Lycia specifically. As we get into this, I want you to understand the numbers as I get into this. The Romans have approximately 60 to 70,000 people with their allies. The Gauls are going to have almost 350, 400,000 men. Those are the odds here, okay? Romans about 75,000 tops, Gauls about 400,000. Okay, let me set this up. So now what happens is, so all of Gaul is in revolt. Vercingetorix he's the Gaelic king. He decides the best thing that they can do is they know that the Romans are technically superior. Their discipline is much better, so they're going to pull back into a town called Alesia. In the center of the screen, the blue and the little box, this is a town called Alesia. It's in France. It's on a big hilltop. The rationale here is that Vercingetorix has about 80,000 men in this one spot, more than the Romans. He's going to pull back, and the idea is he's going to make the Romans come to him. This is a very difficult hilltop spot, and the idea is that if the Romans come to him, Vercingetorix also has about 300,000 men that are allies that can come and they can crush the Romans. So the Vercingetorix decides, we're going to make our stand here. We're sick of 7 years just getting torn to pieces. Together, we're going to make a stand. So what we've got is on the top of this huge hilltop. I'm going to show you some pictures here in a moment. All the Gauls are there, and we have the Romans now that have approached. But Caesar does something very interesting here, very unorthodox. Caesar is outnumbered. Caesar has less men. Caesar is red, the Gauls are blue. Caesar surrounds the Gauls. You never ever besiege a numerically superior enemy. He does. The Romans are so disciplined that the Gauls that are in this little fort, not this fort, it's a huge fort, 80,000 people, of Alesia, they don't venture out, which is a fatal mistake. Caesar then decides immediately. So imagine this. He's in the hostile country. He has 80,000 men in this fort. They are better supplied than him. He's in a hostile country. There could be a Gaelic army coming over any corner, and he makes a very bold decision. He fortifies, he builds a trench around this community, this fort. This trench is 10 miles long. Now, I'm going to show you pictures of this trench. 10 miles is from southern Hudson, where I am, to take 91 straight up to right in the middle of Solon. 10 miles is a long way to build a massive trench, okay? But he goes a step further. So now he's got this massive trench built, right? He builds the trench on the outside. He's now got a trench on the inside. He's now going to keep 80,000 people stuck on the inside. He knows there's an army on the outside. He builds another, and this trench is 14 miles long. He did this in 2 weeks. 2 weeks he's done this. And this is, I'm going to show you some photos. These are massive constructions. I'm going to go back here in a moment. We're talking walls. We're talking all of the forts were 2 stories high. We're talking pits that were dug 30 feet deep wide. Absolutely fascinating that this was able to be done in 2 weeks. And I want you to think about this as well. Not only was this done, they didn't go down to Home Depot to get lumber. There were forests that were a long way away. They had to cut the forest down. They had to transport the material to where they were. They had to make the lumber available. They had to build this. They had to dig this while Vercingetorix with his 80,000 men keep attacking them to try to get them to stop. They have to provide food. They have to do all these different things. It is a monumental achievement. So they built 24 miles of that trench in 2 weeks under crazy circumstances. Okay, so they built this trench to now and what they've done here, if you can kind of wrap your noodle around this, Vercingetorix had all the advantages. He was making Caesar come to him. Really, he was making Caesar assault a well-defended position, or be faced with an overwhelming enemy, or retreat. Caesar comes up with a fourth option. He's going to make his own fort. He makes his own fort. He makes the Gallic people now have to assault his well-fortified position if they want to get out. Now he's got a stranglehold on those 80,000 warriors in the middle, and the 80,000 warriors have about 20,000 civilians there as well. That's a lot of mouths to feed in a place that's not very big. Now Caesar has a stranglehold on these folks, and now he has the advantage. which is once again just fascinating. So imagine all of this is happening in a very short amount of time. Vercingetorix, when he went and sent out to all of his allies, rally every single warrior in all of France and get him here right now. So they're all on their way. Caesar's aware of this. Okay, so now what we've got is, you're seeing again, we've got in the middle, the blue, this is that, in the white, that's the hilltop fort. You've got the Romans in the red now in their trench on the inside and the outside. And now the Gauls are coming. It's estimated that there were 300,000 Gaelic warriors showed up the outside of this. He's got 80,000 inside, 300,000 on the outside, and now he's got to defend this position. So how does he do it? The Gauls are well coordinated. The first thing they do here is they just slam against the outside wall. And as they're slamming against the outside wall, Vercingetorix in the center is also, there's coordinated attacks. He's slamming on the inside wall, and the Romans are doing everything they can to fortify these different positions. Another picture of Elysium here. So they're attacking and just savage fighting. As I've talked to you all before, this is not with rifles or artillery. I mean, this is as hand to hand as it gets. These are thousands and thousands of men. These Gaul people are fighting for their very survival. They know that if they don't get this, the Romans are going to just crush them. And the Romans now, they're fighting for their survival because they're now entrenched. Just horrible, horrible hand-to-hand fighting. So the first whole day goes by with they're fighting. The first whole day now that they separate, that the Gauls are not able to get through. Vercingetorix is not able to get out. That night, so the second day now is pretty well quiet, but the evening of the second day, there's an all-out coordinated assault. The people in the middle, they can't speak to the people on the outside. I'm sorry, the people like the Gauls that are in the middle, but they have flags and they have signals and they have drums and they're talking to each other like crazy. They coordinate an all-out desperate attack. Everyone on the inside punches to one side. Everyone on the outside is punching. Caesar rallies all of his people, and it is just an absolute mayhem trying to keep this thing from crushing. And the man on the site there is somebody named Mark Antony. I don't know if you've ever heard of Mark Antony. He really proved himself as a young officer. He was the man on the spot. Caesar credited Mark Antony with saving the day, keeping everyone rallied, moving what they had to do. And Caesar could spot talent when he saw it. And Mark Antony was his right-hand man till the end of his life. And Mark Antony, that's an entire cool story with he and Cleopatra and all that anyway. But Mark Antony really proved himself there. But again, the Gauls, they cannot punch through. The Romans are absolutely being just tenacious as can be. So the third day, now the Gauls, they know the people on the inside are starving. And another gruesome fact here. So Vercingetorix is in the middle of, he's got his fortified camp. The Romans have built something on the outside. There's about 20,000 civilians. Vercingetorix can't feed the civilians. They're beginning to starve. He sends all of the women and children and elderly out. He sends them out of the fort, hoping that Caesar will allow them through the lines to safety. Caesar doesn't do this. He knows that it's a psychological advantage. So now in the no man's land, between the inner fortification of the Gauls and the inner fortification of the Romans, you have 20,000 starving women, children, elderly that no one is helping. The Romans won't let them in. The Gauls won't let them back. So if you can imagine the carnage that is going on here. So all of this is happening. The women are outside and the people on both gates screaming. It's just bad. It's horrific as you can imagine. So now on this third day, it's desperate. The Gauls on the outside, there's some high ground and they take this position. And what they're going to do is they're going to assault this position with everything they've got. They hit it. While they're hitting that spot, Vercingetorix in the center he's desperately attacking the outside offenses. They're doing everything they can do. They're trying to spread out the Roman defenses so that the Gauls can punch through and alleviate the situation. So this is it. This is absolute desperation. They know that they've got to go, so the Gauls are pushing. The Gauls, break through. The Gauls actually at this time, they break through the one side. The Romans, this is where Caesar is everywhere. He is micromanaging. He's sending cohorts of 500 men, 500 men there. They're pulling everybody. They actually build shield walls on the interior, trying to keep this stable. So the Gauls are in. It's looking pretty favorable. The Gauls actually have begun to punch out. But as you can see in the lower screen here, what Caesar has done, the Gauls are inside, but he takes his cavalry, which are little use in this situation. And kind of remarkably, the Roman cavalry punches out of this. They come back, so they punch out of this thing, and the Roman cavalry is able to punch out, swing back around behind the Gauls. The Gauls panic. They don't realize that the Romans are on their absolute last gasp. Many of the Gauls flee. The Romans constrict it, and they decimate the Gauls. It's absolutely remarkable that they win that. The Gauls, the 300,000 Gauls disperse, and Vercingetorix is in a situation where he then surrenders the next day. Absolutely remarkable as far as the engineering, everything else. And this is a famous painting. Vercingetorix is the gentleman on the horse there. That's Caesar with all of his lieutenants. And this is the surrender of Vercingetorix. Maybe you guys have seen this painting before, but that's what that is. So although there were there were several large battles after this. This was really the final subjugation of Gaul, all of France. Very much a heroic figure. Vercingetorix in France, still they have statues of him everywhere. Very much the Braveheart. What were the casualties of this situation? Rome, they had about 12,800 killed. Gaul, 250,000 killed, 40,000 captured. Just remarkable. And once again, think of this in terms of this is a sword away. This is a spear away. This is as brutal as it can get. I don't think that modern Americans have any concept sometimes of history, of what costs people paid for different things, but just crazy. So, and then the conquest of Gaul itself. I know most people don't know this. That it's estimated by modern historians that 1 million Gauls were killed as a direct result of the war of Caesar's time there. 1 million were enslaved, and they believe about 1 million died just from famine and indirect results. Just an absolute, I mean, genocide's the only word you can really use. So many people were enslaved, actually, that was one of the actually very much a contributing part of the fall of Rome. There were so many slaves that small farmers could no longer compete. The wealthy people bought all the slaves. They had huge farms. Small farmers were driven out of business. They became the urban poor, which then became very much the source of rebellion at the end of but just a horrible thing. So, okay, at the end, what happens is, you guys have heard of a triumph. When you win battles in Rome, you go back, there's a huge parade, and you are celebrated as a god. Crazily, they felt that for whatever reason, Jupiter, the god, he had a red face in their understanding. So when you had a triumph, you had your face painted red, you were led through the streets of Rome, and what you would do is you would have all of your captives in chains. You'd have them all there, and you just parade everybody in front of you to show the conqueror that you were. And at the end of the parade, they were killed. Rome did not mess around. Julius Caesar, heroic figure or despicable devil? you guys can all decide. Just a remarkable tale of the subjugation of what we now understand as France. And I find it fascinating that a lot of people don't quite understand some of these things. I would be happy to entertain any questions if anybody would have them. I covered a lot of history in a very short amount of time. I could expand on any of those pieces. I know that's a heavy way to start a beautiful Wednesday morning in June, but here we are. Any questions from the group?
Tom, great talk. It was interesting. Wow. I have a question. When Gaul was in the Alesia and they started to see what the Romans were, what Caesar was building, the outside, I mean, wouldn't you then go, uh-oh, we better attack now? Any thoughts of why they would wait so long?
They did. They attacked. They tried to. They didn't though do an all-out push. And this is one of those things that psychology, right? I mean, it's one thing to tell people to attack. It's quite another to make them do it. And you had, I mean, these people, they were scared to death. They were tough, but the Romans were so disciplined, and their infantry was so solid that it was a frightening thing to attack. So I mean, it's speculation, but he may have had a hard time convincing all of his people and all out, why not just wait for our reinforcements to arrive? They have, that they knew there were hundreds of thousands of people were coming. So maybe he wasn't able to convince them to do so. I would agree. The logical thing is an all out assault, but they didn't do it. So the speculation is maybe he couldn't get them to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Tom, how did such discipline come to be enforced in the Roman legions? Obviously they saw that they were greatly outnumbered. So, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, they did that's a good thing. I mean, once again, so on the other opposite side, Caesar, how did he get his men to do these incredible things? One, there was an enormous sense of honor in Rome. There was a sense of duty, which was absolutely unparalleled. So the sense of duty, and the other sense is just brutal. And we've all heard of decimation. I'm not sure if you're aware what that is. That's if a group of your men retreats without an order, 1 of every 10 is killed by them. So what you do is you randomly select 1 person out of 10, and their people in their military unit have to stone them to death. You follow orders in Rome. If you don't follow orders in Rome, you are they were just brutal in ways that we can't, as modern Americans, even conceptualize. So there is that sense of honor and that sense of just being way more terrified of your own commanders than you are of any Gaul.
So how did how was he able to rule this large territory, once he won the battle?
Different governors, different lieutenants in different areas. The different folks had to then report to him. When he had gotten all this, he eventually had the Senate just annex all of that as a new territory for Rome, and then the whole government apparatus of Rome was able to sweep in and then just suck all the wealth out of Gaul. I mean, Rome wasn't Rome was built on other people's dime. I kind of get a kick out of Vegas. I mean, those huge casinos aren't built on winners. I don't think people understand that. Rome wasn't built because they were really industrious. It was built because they took a lot of stuff from a lot of other people for a long time.
So what I remember of Latin class was Omnia Gallia, Divisa Est, and Tres Partes. So I guess part of it was dividing it into 3 parts. So.
Yeah, and he, once again, he was a genius about that. He understood that people's greed, right? Need to promise other people's things to different folks, and he was able to just really divide them and pick them apart, and in the end, enslave them all. It's kind of spooky, actually, how he played human nature.
So do we see any of the tactics that were used or any learnings from this battle in future, like present day battles or through history?
Oh, gosh, absolutely. I mean, there's the psychological warfare aspect. There's the divide and conquer. There is no question. I mean, just he was also brilliant at. I mean, think about it. He had numerically inferior force, but able to bring your force that is smaller to bear is That's genius. Napoleon was always outnumbered. People don't realize that. He was always outnumbered, but on the battlefield, he always had more soldiers. Think about that. He was outnumbered contextually, but when he brought his enemy to battle, he always had more. So that's genius, right? So how to make your enemy that is superior make decisions which allows them to be inferior, and you bring, and that's how he did it as well. And that's very much a lesson of Caesar: bring smaller numbers to bear in a larger sense.
Jay Yard had a question as well, Tom. It's in the chat. He was wondering where the weapons were made and whether the Roman weapons were superior to those of the Gauls.
They're made throughout throughout wherever. I mean, the idea is that they would have different foundries, different places. No, they weren't. The Romans, they weren't superior to the Gauls. The way in which they used them was a little different in that the Gauls had very, very long swords for thrusting and all that. The Romans had very short swords called a gladius, and it was Spanish by design. The Romans believed that very tight units packed with shields was the way to go. Other warriors just kind of as a pell-mell. So it wasn't so much that the weapons were better, but tactics were much better. They were able to use unit cohesion in a way that the others could not.
And, when he returned to Rome, how did Julius Caesar parlay his success into his future?
Well, this triumph, gosh, that's a 4-hour discussion. But what happened? Very big. He's in Gaul, and he has broken the law all like crazy, right? And now Pompey, Crassus has gotten himself killed in the east. Pompey is there, and the Senate hates Caesar. They hate him, and they want to bring him back to put him on trial. But while he's the governor of Gaul, he can't be put on trial. They order him to come back. This is the famous crossing the Rubicon. The Rubicon is the river that separates Gaul, where he is sacrosanct, where he can't be tried, from Rome. At this point, Caesar has one legion, and he has to decide, do I go back to Rome and allow them to certainly prosecute me, or do I famously roll the dice and invade, which is insanity, with one legion? So he decides, rather than be brought back, that he is going to invade Rome. And the legions that are there in Rome are not as veteran. I mean, people are terrified of Caesar's legions. I mean, these folks are absolutely brutal. People know they are. So Caesar invades Rome, and Pompey panics, and he actually retreats and goes to Greece. And Caesar marches into Rome as the conqueror. Once again, there's a lot going on there, but he was not welcomed in Rome. He came back as the conqueror, and there began the civil wars.
Any other
So
questions for Tom?
So to give away the ending of the whole story, maybe you can jump ahead and, what was the final downfall of Caesar? Because it wasn't on the battlefield.
The final what? I'm sorry?
Downfall. Was it the way that Shakespeare had sort of portrayed it, or?
Yeah, I mean, just hubris, right? I mean, the idea is you have these very, very proud Roman senators. They are a republic, and you have this person now that has come back, and make a very long story short, he makes himself dictator, and then dictator for 10 years, and then dictator for life. And you have these senators who, once again, Rome, they despise the king. Even the word king was revolting to them, and the idea that they would have another king it just grated on them like crazy. So Caesar, he'd gotten all of this power, all the rest, and his hubris just kicked in, where he felt as though he was untouchable. And at that point, the famous, the Brutus and the rest, et tu Brute or whatever, but the senators got together, and they stabbed him to death, thinking that they would be able to bring back the Republic. But Caesar's adopted son, Caesar Octavian, then got the whole cycle going again. There's a whole nother series of civil wars. And that ended then with the Roman Empire. Caesar Octavian, who Augustus, you may have heard of, probably one of the most brilliant politicians of all time, was able to take that chaos and create the stability, which was the empire. So Caesar came to a very bad end. I would say that's a little karma in action there as well. Who knows?
We say that the lesson, if we don't learn the lessons of history, we're bound to repeat it. So what are the lessons from this part of history?
That's a tough one. I mean, I think some of the lessons are really be aware of your leader's intentions, be aware of perhaps evil in its nascent state. I mean, also another big lesson is Rome, where they had trouble, was they allowed the armies to become loyal to their generals. It's a fatal mistake. Rather than the armies becoming loyal to the state, or they were loyal to the generals. And then when the generals wanted to do things, the armies followed the generals. So in history, when that happens, you're in big trouble. So you need to beware of very, very strong personalities that can sway large government institutions away from the common good. I think that's one of the big lessons.
Is that where the concept of commander-in-chief perhaps evolved from?
It is. I mean, that is, yeah, and that's an entire, like with George Washington, the rest, his genius of being able to step back from that. Yeah, the idea of civilian control over the military is a pretty profound institution. And the fact that, once again, the military they serve the Constitution, not any one person. You need to be very careful. In Caesar's day and such, the generals were the ones that got the soldiers the retirement, got them lands. Like the Senate and the rest of they didn't want to pay the soldiers, essentially. And their generals were their biggest advocates, and that's dangerous, because now all of a sudden the soldiers are they're loyal to the general because that's the one that's getting them their retirement. Some crazy things happen.
And in this country, the generals are generally constrained from making political statements.
Yeah, that is very much a good thing. Once again, when the military, I mean, look at some of the Middle East issues. You know, when the military gets too much power, they can very easily step in and become a dictator. And when they become dictators, it never is brazen. It's always under the veneer of legitimacy. That's one of the keys. When there's a power takeover, there's always the perception of legitimacy.
Interesting. Thank you.
Sure.
What else is in the chat?
Any other questions for Tom? It doesn't look like it. Tom, thank you so much. That was an amazing presentation. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me this morning. I hope it was interesting for you.
It was.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for your presentation. It was certainly learned a little bit more of Roman history and how Europe kind of is the way Europe is today. So appreciate you sharing that with us this morning. Just immediately following our conclusion of our meeting, the Rotary Foundation will be having their meeting. So stay on, and they'll be going into their meeting. And because it is still Maryland's term, we need to have this day in history. So in 1884, it was the first day of summer in 1880. This day was the first day of summer in 1884 because it was the first roller coaster in the United States was opened in Coney Island, New York. In 1930, this day in history, in 1933, FDR signed the first parts of the New Deal. And most importantly, in 1978, Grease, the movie, hit theaters. So with that, fellow Rotarians, if there's
Patrick?
nothing else for the good of the order, Dave?
Patrick, just a real quick, any guesses as to how fast that first roller coaster went?
No idea.
6 miles an hour.
Well, I don't think that would make it up at Cedar Point right now, but
I can walk
Really?
that.
well, the big difference from 1884 to 2021. So
Yep.
with that, Rotarians, and you get a few minutes back on your Tuesday morning. And those of you that are here for the foundation meeting, hang on. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks again, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everybody.